Welcome to A Perfect Touch. I'm Jeanette. Amelia Mary Earhart, born 1897, disappeared 1937. Most well known for her aviation legacy, an aviation pioneer, the first woman to fly across the Atlantic as a solo pilot, the first woman to fly across the United States non-stop, known as a champion for women's rights, author, promoter of commercial air travel, and co-founder of Northwest Airlines, instrumental in the formation of the 99s, an organization for female pilots. What may not be so commonly known is that Amelia Earhart launched a clothing line in 1934. Likely inspired by a visit from well-known designer Elsa Schiaparelli, where the two women discussed the idea of clothes for active women. Earhart began her clothing line with a sewing machine, a mannequin, and a single seamstress. Amelia Earhart Fashions were sold at R.H. Macy & Company in New York and 30 department stores nationwide. The clothing was primarily separates, using unconventional materials such as parachute silk. Buttons shaped like propellers showed her love of aviation. And mindful of the financial impact of the Great Depression, her sewing patterns were available in Women's Home Companion magazine. August 1934 contained a pattern for a two-piece dress. My 1930s wardrobe project absolutely needed an Amelia Earhart-inspired ensemble, not only because of her influence in that period, but for a very personal reason, which I will share with you later. Lady Marlowe Patterns on Etsy offers number 6808, a reproduction 1930s blouse. Quote, shirtwaist blouse with two styles of sleeves, shaped collar, buttoned front closing. Very full sleeves, sheared at top and gathered to wristbands, or regulation shirt sleeves with buttoned cuffs. Blouse may be tucked in or made shorter and gathered to belt, unquote. I've chosen the variation with a longer length, allowing the blouse to be tucked in, and the very full and sheared bishop sleeve. The 5 pattern pieces for my version will be front, back, sleeve, collar, and sleeve band. The full sleeves with shearing will lend themselves to my Amelia Earhart-inspired fabric, a French military surplus white parachute silk found on Etsy. The fabric is very light and sheer and washes beautifully. Sewing this fabric is a dream. The darts are sewn in the fronts. The fronts are sewn to the back at the shoulders using a French seam because of the sheer fabric. French seams are also used to sew the side seams. A narrow hem is machine stitched on the lower edge. The self-facings are created at the front edges. The collar is sewn and attached to the inside of the blouse neck. The outside edge of the collar is folded at the seam allowance and slip-stitched to the outside of the blouse neck. Following Amelia Earhart's design, I search for buttons inspired by airplane propellers. I find metal buttons in 2 different sizes with a design that reminds me of spinning propellers. I machine buttonholes on the blouse right front and attach the buttons. A snap at the upper corner on the right front at the neck. Time to sew those fabulous sleeves. The sleeve seam is sewn, leaving 2 inches open at the lower edge. A French seam is used because of the sheer fabric. The lower edge opening is finished with a 1/2 inch continuous fold of fabric sewn to cover the raw edge. The sleeve band is folded right sides together, the ends stitched, and the sleeve band turned. Gathering stitches are sewn in the lower sleeve, and the sleeve band positioned and sewn to the lower sleeve in the same manner as the collar was sewn. Buttonholes are sewn, and the smaller buttons are used on the sleeve bands. 4 rows of shirring are sewn at the top of the sleeve. The sleeve is pinned into the armhole as marked, the shirring adjusted, and the sleeve stitched to the blouse. The seam allowance is finished with a pinked edge and a small zigzag stitch. The shirring is such a nice detail and technique to control the fullness of the sleeve. The blouse is finished. The silk parachute blouse tucked into the 1930s culottes, which were shared in a separate dress diary blog and video. Vintage photographs of female aviators show Jodhpurs as a common uniform. They are both comfortable and functional. Amelia Earhart favored them for her flights. What could be a more fitting pairing with my Amelia Earhart silk parachute blouse than a pair of Jodhpurs? I've chosen Butterick Making History B6433 with a jacket and choice of the shorter breeches view B or the longer Jodhpurs view C. I've enjoyed the Making History line of Butterick patterns for their attention to detail in both the design and the instructions. This pattern has 26 pattern pieces and 7 pages of instructions, 5 in English, 2 in French. For my View C Jodhpurs, I will use pattern pieces 15 through 26, number 16 front, 19 back, and 20 lower back, and all the detail pieces, 15 inside pocket, 17 pocket, 18 pocket lining. 21 is the patch, which I will not be using here. 22 carriers, or belt loops. 23 front waistband, 24 front extension, 25 back facing, and 26 front facing. The fabric is a black cotton velveteen used for multiple projects for the 1930s wardrobe. Sewing the Jodhpurs is a very detailed construction divided into 5 sections. I won't share in-progress photos of each of the steps in the construction, but I'll give you a general idea of what is included in each section. Section 1, front and pockets. The fronts are sewn together, and a small inside pocket is added to each front section, which will be just below the waistband on the finished Jodhpurs. The larger pockets, which will be at the side of the finished Jodhpurs, require some preparation of hemming and facing, and then are attached to the Jodhpurs front. Section 2, back and inner seam. The darts are sewn in the Jodhpurs backs. The lower back pieces are prepared and attached to the backs. The backs and fronts are stitched together at the inner leg and the remainder of the crotch. Section 3, carriers, front waistband, extensions. The carriers, or belt loops, are made. 2 are attached to the Jodhpurs front near the openings for the small pockets. The front waistband is prepared and attached to the Jodhpurs front, taking special care to keep the small pocket openings free. The upper edge of the carriers is now attached. The waistbands for the front extensions are prepared and attached. Section 4, back facings, and side seams. The back facings are prepared and attached to the upper back. The side seams can now be sewn and the remaining 2 carriers attached. We are nearing the finish line. Section 5, leg facing, hem, and finishing. The lower leg facing is detailed in steps 45 through 53 in the instructions. The buttonholes have been marked and sewn. And while we're creating buttonholes, we create them for the front waistband, front extensions, and side edges of the front, and sew the interior buttons. I'm using ribbon-embroidered velvet buttons for the front sides and plain velvet buttons for the lower legs. Thank you, Noelle of Costuming Drama, for the plain velvet buttons received in the Costumers fabric swap. The cotton velveteen fabric was prone to fraying, and I used fray check at the inside edges of all the buttonholes for this project. The finished Jodhpurs. The dress form can't wear the Jodhpurs, but they can be pinned in place, and here is the finished ensemble with the silk parachute blouse and the tie and knitted vest shared in a separate diary. Amelia Earhart was an author and editor. In this book, The Fun of It, published in 1932, Amelia speaks directly to other young women, urging them to test themselves, to go as far and high as they can and beyond. I have a necklace with the Amelia Earhart quote, "Adventure is worthwhile in itself. Engaging in an adventure is valuable, regardless of the outcome. Adventure can breathe life into our existence and allows us to experience the world with a sense of wonder and newness. It allows us to step out of our comfort zone without fear of failure, since the adventure alone is enough." During World War I, pilots wore a silk scarf around their necks to prevent chafing from the collars of their leather jackets and to block the cold winds that could seep into the jacket gap at their neck. White was the color of choice, so that as the pilots used the scarf to clean their goggles, they could find the cleanest spot to use. The white silk scarf became a tradition for pilots, even into World War II. While I haven't seen photos of Amelia Earhart wearing a white scarf, I have seen the photos of her multicolored scarf, which went to the International Space Station on the shuttle Atlantis in 2009, carried by her photographer's grandson, astronaut Randy Bresnik. I have this white silk scarf from my steampunk air shuttle costume, and it will be put to good use for this ensemble. Amelia Earhart set solo and non-stop records in her career. Among them, her Atlantic crossing from Newfoundland to Ireland, 2,026 miles in just under 15 hours. Over the Pacific Ocean from Hawaii to mainland United States, 2,408 miles in just under 18 hours. And across the United States, 2,477 miles in 19 hours and 5 minutes. Her signature airplane, and one used in many of her record-breaking flights, was the Lockheed Vega 5B, which she called her little red bus. N7952 is now in the Smithsonian. I will wear this enamel pin as a tribute. With all of her accomplishments, it was inevitable that Amelia Earhart would become an influencer. It was natural that Luggage would become popular under Amelia's name and would sell for decades, even after her disappearance. I needed a piece of carry-on luggage, and I scoured the markets and auction sites for just the right one and found an overnight bag that was perfect for my upcoming trip with my 1930s wardrobe. It arrives. Roomy and partitioned for all the essentials through multiple stops while traveling. And something extra special to me, my pilot logbook. The memory of the day, 28 November 1977, when I completed the course of study in flight proficiency in a Cessna 150 N704 Lima Romeo. A cold November day in Wisconsin, but wearing a very big smile. Private pilot, airplane single-engine land. Amelia Earhart would have been smiling right along with me, I think. The 1930s Amelia Earhart Ensemble, perfect touches, and all our luggage is ready to fly. A commercial flight, that is. A black velvet beret, the white silk scarf, black with red stitching leather gloves, the Vega Pin, the adventure necklace, a Felix the Cat watch, and comfortable boots for travel days and sightseeing. Enjoying the Queen Mary 2 in Amelia Earhart-inspired, very comfortable style. Everyone has oceans to fly if they have the heart to do it. Is it reckless? Maybe. But what do dreams know of boundaries? Amelia Earhart.